Hi there, I am A.G. Arana. Some time back, I had prepared a video on how to create a responsive e-commerce website using Dreamweaver and Bootstrap. Now let's see the same website, how to design it using CSS Grid for the page layout and Bootstrap for the navigation, which I find is a little convenient. I have already placed two videos on YouTube. One is CSS Grid layout. First one is using the line numbers, and the second one is using the grid template areas. In this website I am about to create, I will be using the grid template areas. Let's see how this is done. First of all, let's take a look at the web page I have created in the earlier video using Bootstrap. Except for the video part, this video part, which I have updated on account of the change in its link, and then see how to create the same page using CSS Grid with slight modifications. Now this is the page which I have created using Bootstrap earlier, and this is the page which we will now be creating using CSS Grid with slight changes. We will come to that as we go along. I have used a banner in this video instead of the carousel. You may consider using the carousel if required by referring to the code available at getbootstrap.com under components. Now let's move on to the actual project. I will be using Sublime Text as my text editor. I have divided it into two parts. The left side is the HTML and the right side will be the CSS. And this I have done by going to View and come to Layout. And here it gives us an option of either having a single column, two columns, three columns, four columns. So I have made it into two columns for easier working. You may use any text editor of your choice. First of all, open a folder in your desktop. Give it a name, like I have given the name CSS-Grid. Now inside this folder, I have already imported some images. In the images folder, I have three columns images and then four column images. These images we will be using in the exercise. And then under comments, we have three images. And then of course, for the banner, under slider, we have an image. So we'll come to that. So these images, you may use any images of the size that is required. Open a blank folder. Next, name it something like CSS, so that we'll have the CSS files inside this folder. Now open the text editor. Coming to the text editor, I have the blank file. So first let me come to File and save this blank file as in the CSS Grid folder that we have just opened. You save this file. Open that CSS Grid folder, and here you name the file as index.html. So a blank file is saved as index.html. Now at the top of the HTML file, we need to give the metadata code. So for that, if you use the shift exclamation mark and then tab, now Sublime Text provides us the basic code, the top of the page. Now in addition to this, we will also add the code for responsiveness of the page. Meta name viewport, content width is equal to device width, comma, initial dash scale is equal to 1, and string to fit is equal to no. This is for the responsiveness of the page. And the title, we may give any title, like I call it something like CSS Grid page. After that, now we need to add the Bootstrap code. For adding the Bootstrap code, let's open the official website of Bootstrap, that is www.getbootstrap.com, and here open the documentation. And getting started, we have the CSS code first. So this CSS code, if you just copy it and then come and paste it here. This will provide the CSS link. In addition to this, they also have the JavaScript code. JavaScript code is this one. So you just copy this, then come to the HTML and then paste that code just before the end of the body part. Now we have the Bootstrap code included. In addition to this, now we need to add the CSS link. Now for adding the CSS link, let's give the code link rel. Let's call it style sheet and href. Under the CSS folder, we have that style sheet. Let's call it my style.css. Close it. So this links the CSS style sheet. So coming to the right side here, this is the CSS style sheet part. If I keep the cursor here, come to the file and then say save as. Under the same CSS grid folder, let's open the CSS folder, and here we name this as my style.css. Save it. Now we have the CSS file saved. The CSS file now linked to the HTML page, so we are set. Just to check that everything is working perfectly, let's just for a sample add a h1, and here if I say welcome to my web page, and if I right click and view in browser, you can see it shows a welcome to my web page. That means everything is working fine. So let's remove the h1 now and then start the coding. To begin with, I will start with the navigation bar. For the navigation bar, if you come to the official website of Bootstrap, that is getbootstrap.com, and you come to the documentation, and in that components, if you scroll down and come to navbar, you will find the different options for navigation bars. So I am going to pick up the first one, to copy that and then come and paste it here. Save it, and then if you come and look at it in the browser, you can see we have the navigation bar with the navigation item and the search item on the right. Let's do some changes here. Like I have the navigation bar content on the left and the navigation items on the right, and the search bar is no there. So let's go on making the changes that are required. The first one is home, and the second one we have is products with a drop down. So this link item, we will not be needing it here. We will just bring it down and paste it here. Then coming to the drop downs, let's change this drop down description to say products, and under the products drop down, we will have the drop down menu. Here we will change the description again. The first one will say indigenous products, and the second one we will say imported products. And here you can see we have three: indigenous, imported, and classic products. So coming to the third one, let's add one more. And here we say classic products. And then for the divider, we'll change the description to say dealers. Next, the item disabled, we will not be needing that. So let's remove that, disabled. And then the form item also will not be needing it. And this li, we will need it inside the UL. Let's paste it here. The first one, we'll make this to be about us, and copy the entire thing and then paste it again and change this to contact us. So this is all the navigations about. So let's save it now. And if you come and refresh the browser, you will find that the search item is gone and the navigation items are still aligned to the left. Now I want the navigation items to move to the right. So for that, for the UL class navbar nav, here it is given as margin right auto. Instead of that, I'll make it margin left auto, so that those navigation items will move to the right. Let's save it, and then if I refresh the browser, you can see that the navigation items have now moved to the right with the drop down. So now we need to do a little customization for the navigation bar. So that we'll have to come to the style sheet. Coming to the style sheet, first I'll give some common CSS. That is first to the body. We will say padding to be 0. That is remove any default padding, and also the margin will be 0. And the background color I will say F8, F8, F8. After that, let's come to HTML. And for HTML, I'll say the height we want it to be 100%. And the box sizing should be border box, border dash box. And then after this, we will also cover the images like IMG. We want the max width of the images to be 100%. And the height we want it to be auto. These are the common factors for the website. Now, in addition to this, let's come to the navigation bar. Now, for the navigation bar, we have the class of navbar. So this class will come and paste it here. And for the navbar, I will provide it a background color. Background, we will say 1275 FB. This is a blue color. Save it, and then if I refresh now, you find the color has not changed. That is for the reason because by default Bootstrap has BG light. So if you remove that background light and then again now refresh, you find it has got the blue background. Now having got the background, now let's change the color of the navbar item as well as the navigation items. To changing the color of the items, let's use that class of navbar. And first for the navbar brand, we'll say a dot navbar dash brand. We want the color to be white. Save it, and then if you refresh now, you'll find the color has turned into white. Similarly, moving to the navigation items, we will use this class of collapse navbar collapse. Put a dot and again put another class here, collapse navbar collapse. Under this we have the UL and LI. So we say UL and LI. And under the UL and LI, we have the class of nav item. The LI is a class of nav item. So let's add that class of nav item. And then we have the anchor links under that. The anchor link has the class of nav link. So let's add that anchor link of a dot nav dash link. Now inside the curly brackets here, we will say we want the color to be white. Save it, and now if you refresh, you find the navigation items also have got white color. And now give some padding to these navigation items. So move them a little. For giving the padding, we'll have to use the collapse navbar collapse UL LI. We have to give the padding to the LI. Let's use that, and then say padding 0.5 rem in the top and bottom, and then 1 rem to the left and right. Save it. And now if you refresh again, so you find that it has got the sufficient padding with the drop down. So this is how the navigation bar will be completed. If you come and look at it from the smaller viewport, like I'm using Firefox as the browser. So if I use the shortcut key Control Shift plus M, and if I take the break for the responsive unit to be 600 pixels, here you find that we have the navigation bar logo on the left side and the drop down for the navigation items. This is how the navigation bar will look in the smaller viewports. Even if I take it to say 360 pixels, you still find it is responsive. So next we move on to the banner or the hero image. Before we move to the banner, I would like to make one thing clear, that the banner will be going to the entire width of the viewport, whereas the contents below, you want to keep it to a limited width of say 1200 pixels. So we will define a wrapper to the CSS here, giving it a max width of say 1200 pixels, and also the margin to be 0 and auto, so that the items are centered. So this will ensure that the contents after the banner will be within the limited width, whereas the banner will go through the entire width. Coming back to the HTML, so after the navigation is over, let's give it a div class of banner. Inside the div class of banner, now we need to specify the image source, like imgsrc. There are two options that you can have a image which is readily available, like I have image of pick one in the slider. This is a JPEG file of 1920 by 711 pixels. I'm going to use this, but there is another option that you can also use it online, like using HTTPS and you say pixum.photos/ say id dash. I'm going to specify a particular image. Let's see how this will look. 700 and question mark. If this is the image, if I save this and refresh my browser, let's see how that image will look. Now this image is taken directly from the unsplash.com, that is from Pixum, whereas I am going to use my own image instead of the online image. So I'll say in the images I have slider, and under the slider I have the image of pic1.jpg, and we'll also give an all description, we say river view, and also give it a class of say img fluid, and save it. And if you refresh now, this is the image that I am going to use. At this stage, let's have a look at how this page will look in the smaller viewports. Like since I am using Firefox, I'm going to use the shortcut key Control Shift and M. Now this is the 600 pixels width for the smallest viewport. And here you can see nav bar, and then the drop down for the nav item and along with the image. So next we move on to the heading. The heading is welcome to our website. So let's devise this heading. So for that, after the closure of the banner, now I'll devise the div class of wrapper for the all the content to come after this. I'm going to devise a wrapper, restricting the width to say 1200 pixel maximum. Inside this wrapper, now let me give another div class of say header, and inside the header now I'll define the h1. For the h1, I would say welcome to our website. Save it, and if I refresh the browser now you can see we have the heading aligned towards the left. So we need to center the heading. So for that, let's come to the style sheet. Let's take the class of header h1, text align, say center, and we'll also give it a padding of say 1 rem all around. Save it, and then if I refresh it now, you find now that the heading has come to the center with the padding. Now if I want to increase the padding to the top slightly, then I will say 2 rem to the top, then 1 rem to the right, and 1 rem to the bottom, 1 rem to the bottom, and 1 rem to the left. So if I save this now, you find it will have 2 rem padding to the top. Let's now move on to the next section, that is the 3-column layout about us. So we have the first column of specialty, second column of goals, and third one our team. Now let's see how to build this 3-column layout. So inside the wrapper, let me take the first section. I'll make it a separate section, and inside this section I will first add the heading of say S2, and for the heading I will say about us, and after that let me give the div class of say 3 columns. Inside this div class of 3 columns, let me add the first column, the div class of say column 1, column dash 1, and inside this div class of column 1, first we have the image, then we have the heading, and then we have text and the button. So first let's add the image. Now for the image I will use say imgsrc, and the image that we have is in the images folder, like in the images folder under 3 columns. I have these 3 images. They are all the PNG images with the dimension of 60 by 60 pixels. So we are going to use these images. So source would be under the images folder. I have 3-col folder. Inside this I have pic1.png, and give it a class of say rounded circle, because we want the image to be rounded, and this is a bootstrap class, rounded circle, and also img fluid, so that the image adapts to the different viewports, and give it an alt description of say first image. Okay, save it now, and then if I refresh, you can see we have the heading as well as the first image. So after this image, let me put heading of H3. Under H3, first we have the heading is our specialty, and after the H3 we will have some text. Now for the text I will use lorem 30, and then after the text we will have the button. You say button type would be button, and then a class of btn, btn primary, blue button, and say let's say view details, and close the button. So this is the first column. Let's save this now, and then if I come and refresh, you can see that we have the image, heading, text, and the button. This is for the first column. Similarly, now let's use the second column. So let me copy the column 1, and then go on making the changes as required. This will be column 2, and the image that we're going to use here will be pic2, and this will be the second image, and the heading would be our goals, and bottom will remain the same. Then come and post it for the third time. This one will be column 3, and the image will be pick 3. This will be a third image, and the heading for this column would be our team. Okay, let's save this now, and if I refresh, so we have 3 columns going one below the other. Now let's see how we'll align them using CSS Grid. We'll come to the style sheet, and in the style sheet we'll use the div class of 3 columns. And now here we say display grid, and also we'll use the grid template areas. Let's say grid template areas, and here we'll use the columns. That is the first is column 1. So paste it here, give a space, and then say for the second is column 2, because I already have a separate video on this. Then come and paste column 3. Okay. Thereafter, we give the grid gap of say 1 rem. Save it, and now if I refresh the browser, you can see 3 columns are now aligned. So the first is we have to move the heading to the center. To moving the heading to the center, let's target that heading of S2. Here we'll give it a class of say text center. Save it, and then if I refresh, you find the heading has come to the center. Now let's give some padding to that. Here I will use the bootstrap shortcut for the paddings. If I say pt-3, this means padding top 3 is 1 rem, and similarly for padding bottom also 1 rem. Save it, and then if I refresh, you can see we have 1 rem padding, and the heading has come to the center. Next, let's come to the 3 columns. First of all, let us center the content in the 3 columns. For centering it, let's take all the 3 classes, like you say column 1 comma, the class of column 2 comma, and then class of column 3. First we'll say text align center. Save it, and then if I refresh, so you find that the content has come right to the center. The second, we'll give it the padding, some padding. So we say padding will be 0 on the top and bottom, and 1 rem on the left and right. And also we will say give it a border of say 1 pixel solid, light border is a df and df. Save it, and now if I refresh, so you can see we have a light border across all the 3 columns. To provide a little more padding at the top here, let's say that padding will make it 1 rem all around. Save it, and then if I refresh, okay, this looks better. Now for the text, we have an option of either leaving it centralized or justifying it. So for our purpose, I will try to take the content justified. So for that, let me use all the 3 classes and the paragraphs, like column 1 paragraph, and also column 2 paragraph, and column 3 paragraph. And here we'll say text align justify. Save it, and if I refresh again now, you can see the text is now justified. It looks in a perfect blocks. Next, we have to give some color to this heading. So the first one is H3 of column 1 H3. Right? So we will take the class of column 1 H3 and give it the color of say hash 2E0 to E0 C0C, and similarly for the column 2, paste it here and make it say column 2, and the color will change it to F4 292C, and for the third one we'll make it column 3, and the color will make it 20450E. Save it, and now if I refresh, you can see we have 3 different colors for the heading. Now this is how the columns will look in the original, and this is how the columns are now looking in the our page that we have designed. Now, one important difference you would have noticed in the original is that all the 3 buttons are in the same line, whereas in our case, the first case the button is gone up, whereas the other 2 are in line. So how to bring all these 3 buttons in line? For that, we need to use the grid template columns. Like in the 3 column area, if you come here and we use that grid template columns, this is a 3 column layout, so we will say repeat 3 times 1FR. Save this now, and now if I refresh the browser, we can see that all the 3 buttons have come in the same line. That means the grid area is correctly allocated by CSS Grid. So we should ensure that not only the grid template areas, but will also we specify the grid template columns so that the columns are properly aligned. Next, we move on to the 4 column layout. These are the 4 columns of our products. Let's see how to design this in the CSS Grid. So coming to the HTML, let's come down here, and before the end of the wrapper, let's add another section. And inside the section, first let me add a heading of H2, and here we'll say our products. Next, after the heading, let me add the div class of say 4 column. Inside the div class of 4 columns, now let's add one by one the columns. The first is the 4 columns 1, 4 dash columns dash 1. This is the first column, and inside this first column, we would have first the image, then the heading, text, and the buttons. So first let's start with the image. So the images, as you can see, in the images folder, under the 4 dash col, we have these 4 images. So these are all JPEG images of the dimensions of 253 by 190 pixels. So we will be using these images here. So we'll use the imgsrc. We'll say first under the images folder, under the 4 dash col folder, we have the first image, that is let's say pic4.jpg, and then give it an alt description of say image 1, and also a class of say img fluid. Okay, so after this image is inserted, let's give the heading of H3. So the heading here would be product 1, and after that heading we will have the text. So for the text, we'll put it inside a paragraph, and here I'll say LRM20, And after the text, we'll also add a button. Now button, since we have two buttons here, so we'll put it inside a paragraph. The first button will start with the href is equal to, we'll say hash, and then class, we'll say btn. It will be btn primary, and then we'll say role would be button, and the first description that we will have will be buy now, and then close the anchor tag. Then immediately after this, we start with the second button. We say ahref. It also will have a hash, and then give it a class of say btn. We will say outline primary, so there will be only blue outline, and then we'll have a role of say button, and then give the description. We say view now, and close the anchor tag, save it, and if you now refresh the browser, you can see we have the main heading, and then the image, and this subsequent heading, text, and the two buttons. Okay, so let's go on to the second column now. This was the first column. So the first column, the entire thing, let's copy this and paste it, and we say 4 columns 2, and here the pick image will be pick 5, and say image 2. Here we say product 2, and then come and paste it again, and here we say column 3, and this will be pick 6 dot jpeg. This will be image 3, and this will be product 3, and then paste it again, and here we'll say 4 columns 4, and this image will be pick 7, and this will be image 4, and this will be product 4. Okay, come on, let's save this now. Refresh the browser. You say we have the 4 columns lined one below the other. Now let's go on aligning them by using the CSS grid in the style sheet. So coming to the style sheet, first let me put a description here, and here we say 4 columns, so it will be easier to identify later on for corrections whenever required. Okay, inside this description of 4 columns, first let's take that main div of 4 columns. Paste it, and then say inside the curly bracket, first we will say display grid, and then we will have the grid template columns. If I say shortcut form GTC and then hit the tab, it gives me grid template columns description, and here we say repeat 4 times 1 FR. That means I want 4 columns, 1 FR, that means 1 fraction each. And then give it a grid gap. Let's give it a grid gap of say here we'll give 2 rem. And we'll also now give it the grid template areas. Let's describe the grid template areas. For grid template areas, if I say GTA short form and then hit the tab, it gives me grid template areas. Here, let me go on describing the areas. So the areas are, first is for column 1. Let's copy this, paste it here, and give a space. And then coming to the second column, you say for column 2, and place it here, and then give a space. Coming to 4 columns 3, copy it, and then paste it here, and then give a space, and come to core column 4, copy it, and then come and paste it here, and then give it a semicolon. So that is the grid template areas. And we will also give the command of say text align center, because we want the content to be aligned to the center. Save this, and now if I refresh, you can see all the 4 columns lined up one next to the other with the 2 rem padding, and also the contents are aligned to the center. So I need to first bring down the heading S2. Like the S2, you can see here, this is here we'll give it a class of say padding to the top 3 and padding to the bottom 3. That is 1 rem each, and also the class of text center. Save it, and now if you refresh, you have 1 rem padding, and then the title has come to the center. Now here also the text, if I want to justify it, then I need to justify the contents in the paragraph. For that, let's use this, each of these columns, we'll say for column 1 P and comma, then we'll say for columns 2, then paragraph and comma, and then we'll say for columns 3, put a class here, put a paragraph, comma, and then put a class and say 4 dash columns 4 and a paragraph, and here we say text align, justify, save it, and then if you refresh, you will find that the text is now justified. One other thing we could observe is that by way of justification, the buttons have also moved to the left, aligned to the left, to align the buttons to the center. Now here we can see that in the 4 columns, we have put the buttons inside a paragraph. So if I remove the paragraph from the buttons, save it, and then see, you can see now that the buttons are also centered by virtue of the command of 4 columns text align center. So let's remove the paragraph from all the buttons here, and the next one, and the last one here. Okay, save it. So the next item is there is that the gap here, if you see in the original, the gap between the 2 columns is quite substantial, whereas here the gap is less. That's because we have given each of these a section, so we need to give some padding to the section. So here we target the tag of section, and when we say padding, say 2.5 rem on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. Save it, and now if you refresh, you will find there is substantial padding that has come about between the 2 items. At this stage, let's take a look at how this page so far will look in the smallest viewport. Like I'm using Firefox as a browser, so I'll use the shortcut key Ctrl+Shift+M, and the responsive width I keep it at about 600 pixels. Now this is how the first 3 columns will look, and then the 4 columns. Now in the smallest viewports, this would not be ideal to put these columns like this. So for that, let's come and devise the media query. Coming to the CSS, let's first devise a media query. Let's say media. Here we say max width, if I take about 600 pixels. And first, we need to target the wrapper because we are given a max width to the wrapper. So coming to here, let's say class of wrapper. We will say width to be 100% of the viewport width, 100 VW, and then let's next target the 3 columns. The 3 columns that we have targeted here. So coming to the 3 columns, we have given the code. So copy this and come to the smallest viewport, paste it, and then we'll say for the grid template areas, we want each one in a single line, so that we'll bring each one of them to a single line in the CSS. So we have grid template areas, first column 1, column 2, and column 3. And also that the grid template columns, we have said repeat 3 columns. Now in the smallest viewport, we don't want 3 columns, we will say only a single column, like 1 FR. Save it, and then now if you refresh, So you will find that each of these columns has taken the full width of the viewport. So this is how the 3 columnar layout will look. And similarly, coming to the 4 columnar layout, let's use the 4 column layout here. Save it and then come and paste it. Same position here. The grid template area. So let's keep 1 in each of the columns. Column 3 and then 4 column 4. Similarly, for the grid template columns, here also will say 1FR. Save it, and if I refresh. Now for the 4 columns, the 1FR looks to be quietly out of the context. So if I say 1FR and 1FR, so 2 columns, instead of a single column, if I revise it to say 2 columns per row, here it looks better. This looks much better. Only thing is the text now is reaching the end of the columns. For that we can give some padding. So we'll say column 1, column 2, all these columns. And this will keep it not for the paragraph, but for the entire columns. So remove the P. Column 2, then column 3, and then column 4. Here, if I define padding, top and bottom, if I don't say anything, but from the left and right, if I say 1 rem, if I refresh it now, you can see that we have 1 rem padding on either side. So this is how the 4 column layout will look in the smallest viewport. This is how the 3 column layout will look in the smallest viewport. Next we move on to the feedback, what they say. There are 3 columns in this. Let's see how to devise this. So coming back to the HTML, and let's add a section again before the wrapper. And inside the section, first we'll add a heading of H2, and here we say what they say, and we'll provide a class to the H2 of say padding to the top 3 as we have given it for other headings, and a padding to the bottom also 3, and also text center. And after the H2, let's give it a div class of say feedback, feed-back, and inside the div class of feedback, now here we give column by column. So first we say first class will be div class of feedback -1. It's the first div. Inside this div class of feedback 1, we will give further div class of say media, and inside the div class of media, now we will give the image. Now for the image we have under comments, there are 3 images. These are all JPEG images of the dimension of 150 by 150 pixels. So we're going to use these 3 images. So coming back here, we'll first say ahref, we'll give it a hash, and then devise it image img src. We will say images oblique comments. Under the comments folder, we have pic1.jpg, and the class we will give it say media object, then source src, we'll say images. Inside this we have comments folder. Inside the comments folder we have pic1.jpg, and we'll also give it an alt description of say ABC, and then close the anchor. After this media div, we will give another div of say media content, and to this div we will provide it a padding of 2, and inside this div, now let's give the text. For the text I will say lorem 10, And after this text, let's give it a div class of say media footer. And inside the div class of media footer, we will say dot 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 a b c. These are all fictitious names. Okay, so this completes the first column. Save this and refresh the browser. You can see we have the image, text and the footer. So this is the first column. Now let's copy this feedback 1 column and paste it for the second time, and this one we'll call it feedback feed dash back dash 2, and the image we will make it pic 2, and the alt will say x, y and z, and the footer also here we say x, y and z. Then come for the third time, paste it here, and this say feedback 3, this third column, and the image will say pic 3, and this will be, let's say, L, M and N. Similarly at the bottom here we say L, M and N. Save it. If you refresh the browser, you will see that these 3 columns are lined one below the other. Now let's come to the style sheet and align them by giving CSS Grid. So for that, first pick up the main class of feedback. And inside this, we will first say display grid, and then we will also say grid template columns. So GTC will give me grid template columns, and then say repeat, say 3 columns, 3 with 1 FR, and then provide a grid gap of say 2 rem, and now we will give the grid template areas. So if I say GTA and tab, it gives me the description of grid template areas, and in the grid template areas now within inverted commas, let's place the columns. This is first is the feedback 1, then give a space and then say feedback 2, again give a space and then come and say feedback 3, and then give a semicolon at the end. And then we will also say that we want the text to be aligned to the center, so say text align center. Save it. If I refresh this now, you can see that the 3 columns are aligned next to each other. And once we need to further align the images. For aligning the images, now let's come to that class of media. Pick up this class, media, put a dot there and paste it. And inside that, we will now use the flex box. We say display flex, and then justify, we'll say content center, and align items also center. So this will center the media. So save it, and then if I refresh, you can see the images come to the center. Now we need to make these images circular. So making the images circular, let's target that class of media, and inside the media we have the images. Let's say media img, and here we say border radius, we'll say 50%. Save it, and then if I refresh now, you see that the images are rounded. Then we need to provide some padding and a border across to these 3 columns. To do that, let's pick up these 3 classes, feedback 1, comma, put a dot and say feedback 2 and comma, and then put a dot and say feedback 3. Copy this and then come and paste it here. Inside this, now we will say padding would be say 1 rem, and then a border of say 1 pixel solid. We would say df. Save it, and now if I refresh, you can see the padding has come about, and the border also has come about, all the 3 columns. Now the footer, we want it to move into the right. So moving the footer to the right, then let's target that class of media footer. We have this class of media footer. Put a dot here and paste it, and then say text align right. Save it, and now if you refresh again, now you find that the footer has gone to the right side. So this is how the 3 columns will be aligned in the larger viewport. If you come to the smaller viewport, you will see that the columns are aligned one next to the other. So if you want to try them to be single column, then we need to place this class. If you come to the 600 pixels here, and then place that, and here if I say I want to place it in a single line, okay, and this one I will say 1FR. Save it, and then if I refresh now, you can see this is how the 3 columns will look on what they say, and these are not very appealing. So that is why we will retain that. Save it and refresh. So we will have the 3 columns next to each other. So next we move on to the next item, and that is embedding this video. Let's see how to embed this video. So coming to the HTML, after the closure of the section, let's add one more section. Inside this section, I'll add a class of say video, and inside the div class of video, let me add the heading of S2, and the heading will be watch video. And for this heading, I'm going to give the same classes. That is class is equal to padding top 3 and padding bottom 3, and also text center. After the S2, now I need to provide a div class of video embed. So for that, if I say class of video and class of embed dash responsive, and also another class of say embed dash responsive dash 16 by 9. 16 by 9 is the viewport width, that is the screen width. I am using 16 by 9 width. So this is the class, and the code for the video. This is the video, which is a live video on YouTube. So I'll pick up the code from YouTube, and this is the code that is available in YouTube. Now if I save this now and refresh the browser, you can see this is the YouTube video, and this is a live video relaying from YouTube. So this is how we embed the video in the larger viewport. Now if I come and see it in the smaller viewport, you can see this is how the video will get adjusted to the smaller viewport. One other item that remains is the contact us form. So I'm going to push this contact us form below the video for better alignment. So coming to the HTML here, let's open a section, and inside this section I first give the heading S2, and for the S2 let me give the class as I given to the other headings, padding top 3 and padding bottom 3 and text center. And the heading we will say contact us, and below the S2 now we're going to paste the code for the contact form. So I'm going to pick up the code from my previous video. So this is the form, So just copy this and then come and paste it here and align the HTML. Okay, so this is the contact us form. Let's save this. If you refresh the browser, you can see we have the contact us form with the name, email ID, telephone number, and the message and a submit button. So let's see how this contact us form looks in the smaller viewport. Like this is how it will be looking in the smaller viewport. Next, we move on to the next item, that is the footer. For the footer, I'll come back to the HTML, and after the wrapper, I want the footer to go through the entire width of the viewport. So after the wrapper, I'll say footer class is equal to footer, and then close the footer. Inside this, let me put some text. I'm going to keep it quite simple, and you say and copy semicolon. This is the code for the copyright, and then we say copyright. You can put the year of the copyright if there's any, and then something like all rights reserved. Any item that we want to get to the footer will be placed here. So save it, and then coming to the CSS here, let's give some CSS to the footer, the class of footer. So here we say, first of all, we give it a padding of say 2 rem, the top and bottom, and 0 on the left and right. And then the background. Now here, in the original, the background is blue, so I'm going to change it to black. So something like say 222, not fully black, but grayish black. And then the color, I'll say white. That is for the text item. And then we say text to be aligned to the center. Now let's save this now, and if I come and refresh the browser now, you can see we have the footer with the copyright text right in the center. So let's see how this footer will look in the smallest viewport. Coming back to the small viewport, you can see this is the footer. So this is how the page will look in the smaller viewport, and this is how the entire page will look in the larger viewport. So this completes the video. I hope this was useful. Thank you.